So I think this is a good time right now, and it's fair to speak about um, my feelings or my thoughts regarding the situation that's going on in Haiti, and might lightly touch upon Cuba. So I'm first generation Haitian American, and my faith, the faith that I practice, is of Cuban lineage. Okay, so that's why this is this is the reason why I'm going to speak right now. It's unfortunate on a series of levels and fronts that what happened in Haiti took place. Okay, the assassination of the president of Haiti uh, sent ripples throughout the island and throughout the diaspora. Okay, there's one thing that I've realized just as a little boy growing up and listening to my father and his friends and associates, and even my parents, both father and mother, their friends and associates, talk through the years. I mean, I remember when Haiti was under the governing dictatorship of Baby Doc, Jean-Claude Duvalier, Baby Doc. His father was known as Papa Doc. They had a special type of stronghold over the island for decades. And it was as a child and as a youth and as a young man and today that I learned about corruption. I learned about many ills that are practiced by people who always want to make sure that they have everything and the majority has nothing. Okay? People have their own opinions about things, and Haitians were the first to claim their independence in the western part of the world. But ever since they claimed their independence in the western part of the world, Haiti has been the poorest nation in western part of the world, and some even go as far as to say in the entire world. Ever since they claimed their independence from Europe, from the French specifically, they've had to, and we've had to, endure centuries old, for 2 centuries, over 2 centuries of degradation, humiliation, so forth and so on. Now, I'm a man of prayer. But I also understand that everything can't always be solved through praying or marching or yelling, right? I understand that fully. It's in my blood. Part of these issues that took place, from what it appears, is it's more than what meets the eye. It's a lot more than what meets the eye, and I dare say that we will never really truly know how this assassination took place. You know, you want to talk about illusions, deception, underlying operations, things that happen in secret that's kept from the masses on purpose. I'm not trying to present conspiracy. I'm just speaking about reality. Unless we're deeply entrenched and involved in the inner workings of what took place and the mechanics, right? We really will never know, because you have the media, a powerful engine called the media that delivers information, right? We don't know how correct the information is. We don't know how solid the information is. We don't know how factual and truthful the information is. But they're still delivering information, which helps to paint narratives that's given to the people. Even when I have communications, with people who are actually there, which is the realest, as far as like, to when you hearing it, ears to the ground, you still have to question, because there's still so many questions left unanswered. Is this by design? I think so. Is this done purposefully? I believe so. Not the fact that I'm getting information that I question, but for the fact that there's so many questions left unanswered. When you're given answers that just are not good enough. Okay? By the time I heard that the United States may have had a hand in that, what could I say? It's almost like shaking my head. That's all I could do was shake my head. All I can do was shake my head. Because the U.S. has had its hand in many dealings across the world. What makes this any different, right? The state of affairs in Haiti are so dire. For many of us who live in this country, in this what I call tapestry, called the United States, the so-called new and free world, we couldn't imagine the conditions that some human beings are living, specifically in Haiti. You can't imagine. You cannot imagine. Yet people still continue to thrive, to survive, to exist, to live. In the most impoverished conditions. Again, unless you're there, unless you've ever been there, in the trenches, not on some resort, but in the trenches. Unless you're there, you have no idea what real abject poverty is like, in truth. You know? And it burns me. It burns my soul to know that people live under extreme circumstances, under extremely hazardous circumstances and conditions, where basic food and water, you can't depend on receiving basic food and water. You can't depend on receiving basic food, water, electricity. Your basic needs are questionable day by day. And I find myself, here enjoying the spoils of life. Enjoying the spoils of life. And sometimes it takes, certain events to jar me, to wake me up and help me realize, there are so many people that have so much less than I do. And what the hell do I have to complain about today? Because whatever I have to complain about today, millions of people all across the world would love to exchange places with me. Okay? Millions of people, billions, I dare say, would love to exchange places with me at any given point. You know what it is to fear, to live in fear, to live in fear every day, to live in fear even abroad, praying and hoping that your loved ones back home are safe. We're talking basic needs, safety, shelter, being able to eat, being able to have the means to eat. Some of this there's just too much I can't capture in a recording. There's just too much to talk about that I cannot capture in one sitting. There's just so much to talk about that the words escape me. They literally escape me. To where I become, again, my own extreme critic towards me. I have the nerve to really talk about the nonsense that I talk about, as far as complaining about garbage. Let a natural disaster occur or a tragic event occur. And that's when we truly will realize the amount of things that we take for granted every day, around the clock. We have choices here. Over there, they don't. Like, we have choices. We have liberties that we misuse. Over there, it's not like that. They don't. Including Cuba. You know, if I put if I put my own tinfoil hat on, would I think this is a coincidence that the president gets assassinated on one island and maybe 100 miles away, Cuba is going through protests and an uproar shortly after the president of Haiti gets assassinated? In a short period of time, you have two things happening in two different, islands, two different pieces of land. Turmoil is taking place. Is that coincidence? Is that a coincidence? And then we rest our laurels on elected officials. We think that elected officials will do the right thing. We hope that they can do the right thing. We hope and believe and would love to believe that they could fix all of this. I have to really take inventory and personally count my freaking blessings every day, just like you all do. You have to count your blessings every day, because no matter how bad you think you have it right now, there are millions that have it worse off than you right now, who would love to trade places. It's just about perspective. It's all about perspective. Putting things in its proper place and context. Because I personally, sometimes I feel powerless. I feel powerless. Because all this is taking place right now, and what can I do to help? Send energy, like positive vibes. How do I help? Pray. How do I help? How do I help? It's part of the reason why I kind of been sort of turned off by YouTube. I've been turned off by YouTube and just making crypto content on crypto, because there's a life that's going on around here outside of cryptocurrency. We're talking about real life. And I'm a real sentient person. You know, I'd like to speak about whatever comes to my mind. That's why I might even change the title of my channel, because yeah, Crypto Wonder podcast, but this is about me and this is real. My channel wasn't always called Crypto Wonder. You know, you're talking about currency in both countries. The currency is ravaged. Economics failing, like just the regimes that they've been under. Promoted just a certain illness, a certain ill-fated level of abject poverty, like you can't even imagine. And you know what's crazy? What's crazy? The will to survive, the level of resilience that Haitian people have, remarkable. The level of resilience that Cuban people have, remarkable. The level of resilience that certain people, right, just human beings who just all they want to do is have the chance, have the opportunity to live their most natural lives, as natural as they can, as best as they can, will overcome any and all hurdles that are thrown at them. The problems I freaking have pale in comparison to what they go through, what millions of people are going through, and I have the nerve to bitch and moan? Really? Really? Everything I have is a luxury. Every single blessing. And I need to take onus of that, account for it, and be grateful for it. And everyone else who's able to say that they're not homeless, who's able to say that they were able to eat today and know that they can eat tomorrow, who's able to say that they're able to make a way for themselves. Consider yourselves fortunate, blessed, and extremely lucky. People who can work, people who run their own business, people who, live off of whatever generational wealth, passive income, residual income, anything. Hell, you receiving some kind of assistance from the government. Doesn't matter what level you want. Consider yourselves freaking fortunate. You were able to touch a stimulus check. You're fortunate. That stimulus check is equivalent to a person's yearly salary in some parts of the world. You gotta make a little bit stretch. You gotta make a stretch. I mean, the words escape me. The words escape me. In describing, what I feel of as far as what's going on back home and in Cuba. But what I was going to say was spiritually, both islands, and I include the side of the Dominican Republic to both islands, Haiti, DR, Cuba, spiritually rich, and economically and financially downtrodden, distraught. I'm inclined to believe that's done by design, so that whatever elitist powers that be can keep their proverbial foot on our necks. And you wonder why I get impassionate sometimes when I speak out against these elected officials here, when I even speak out against petty fucking scammers. You wonder where my passion comes from. Because that resilience runs through my blood. It's in my DNA. And many people can recognize it, because why? Real recognizes real. Always. I don't know if this will ever happen as far as the change that people are crying to see, are pleading to see. The resolve in truth to come to pass. I don't know if that will ever happen in my lifetime. I believe it'll take possibly another century, maybe more, maybe longer, for the feet and the control of these oligarchs to literally crumble. Bitcoin is not enough, okay? Crypto is just not enough to obliterate the control, the tyrannical control of these imperialistic oligarchs. I'm telling you. All great civilizations, they said, had to come to peril. Perhaps the clock is ticking, and it might go boom. But I don't know if it's gonna go boom in our lifetime. I don't know if it's gonna happen now. And I'm not saying and trying to be egotistical and think I'm gonna live for another 50 or 100 years. I could go tonight. I could go tomorrow. I just don't see the reprieve. I don't see the relief taking place anytime soon. And it's not because the people don't want it. It's because the minority that controls the majority will continue to be the minority. Until it's no longer. When that'll be, who knows? Those islands are spiritually rich, and I'm not talking about Catholicism either. We've been subjugated to believe that we're less than human. We've been subjugated to believe that our faith-based systems represents the philosophy of savages. We've been subjected to believe that we have no useful purpose to rise to the levels of the most esteemed characters and figures known to humanity. We've been subject to believe that we don't deserve to be treated in an equitable fashion. Because of the ways we connect with our Creator, the ways we revere and venerate our ancestors, the way we keep in touch, we keep attuned, we remain attuned with things that we cannot see, that stem from the Creator. It's a problem for these entities, these oligarchs, who completely understand what we do. But the world thinks everything we do has this Judeo-Christian, demonic, devilish connotation to it, and it's all fucking false. And this is coming from a Catholic, a person who's born and raised Catholic. Oh my goodness. Can't make this up. I wish this was fiction. I wish this was fiction. Sadly, it's all nonfiction. It's a way of life, but because we're able to survive and thrive for centuries with the powers that be, with the natural energy, I should say, not the powers that be, but the natural energies that exist in life, we're made to be vilified, dehumanized, emasculated, pillaged upon, destroyed, psychologically, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, ripped from our roots. Babies, children, women killed, raped, maimed, men castrated, beheaded, lynched, burned, drowned, everything you can think of. Everything heinous that you can think of. And we persevered through all that shit. And still have to live in a fishbowl. The majority of us have to live in a fishbowl, while the minority just gawks at us and points fingers at us in amusement. To be continued. To be continued.